there were all these warnings about terror attacks the Bush administration issued during the 2004 campaign. Even Homeland Security Czar Tom Ridge later said that he thought a lot of those warnings were not justified. But there was a study done at Cornell. It showed that each time the federal government issued a new warning of a terrorist threat after 9/11, the president's approval rating rose by an average of almost 3%. And as long as enough people can be frightened, then all people can be rolled. That's how it works in a democratic system. And, mass fear becomes the ticket to destroy rights across the board.
We're talking with Jim Bovard. His book is Attention Deficit Democracy. Jim, if you had a chance to help people understand the pitfalls of democracy, as the term is used in America, what would you like to tell people?
Well, there are a lot of benefits to representative government, and it's far better than any type of dictatorial system. And it's far better than a one-man rule situation. The vision the Founding Fathers had of a rule of law and equality before the law and no one above the law, that is a very viable vision. But if instead of that we have quasi-mob rule, if we have simply politicians stampeding voters during campaigns, if an election is simply a one-day snapshot of transient mass delusions, then this is not a very noble form of government. If so many Americans are looking for the government to save them, then it's hard to have a dignified search for a shepherd-in-chief.
Shepherd-in-chief, that's an interesting phrase.
Well, that seems, this is something which we also saw during the Clinton administration. That was something which Clinton exploited very effectively, this whole notion of feeling your pain and promising to protect you against every possible threat and danger and all that stuff. And a lot of people liked that, and a lot of people fell for it. But that doesn't mean that the government's going to keep its side of the bargain no matter what politicians promise.
I'm going to read another comment from your book. It's also on page 251. You say, it is unclear whether liberty can be revived in America. It is unclear how many Americans still give a damn about freedom, still give a damn about the chance to carve out their own lives according to their own values. It is unclear how many people would suffer any inconvenience or notoriety for voicing or supporting unpopular views. It is unclear how many Americans have the courage to decry government's abuses that the majority tolerates or applauds. Let's break this paragraph down and go through this point by point, if you don't mind. Let's deal with, about how many Americans care about freedom.
Well, it's interesting. It's hard to know how many people do, but given that the people are so docile towards the rulers, nowadays very few Americans show the passion for freedom that our forefathers had. For instance, think about how many young people and college students would happily permit the government to monitor all their email in return for a promise of unlimited free music downloads. How many Walmart gift certificates would it take for a typical citizen to agree to forfeit all his Fourth Amendment rights and entitle the government to search his car, house, and himself any time that they chose? How many McDonald's gift certificates would it take to sway a lot of Americans to pledge to never publicly criticize the U.S. president? I don't know the exact numbers on these, and perhaps some of the people who would agree to that would change their mind afterwards, but people seem to forget, people have forgotten that power is dangerous, and especially coercive power, and power to destroy your rights, power to lock you away, either on false charges or no charges at all, power to suppress you. It's amazing to think that after all that's happened in this country in the last few years, the last few decades, that so many people have this blind faith that government is our friend, and therefore we don't need protections against it.
Let me move on in the same paragraph. You say, give a damn about the chance to carve out their own lives according to their own values.
It's interesting. It's interesting to think of how many folks these days are willing to make any sacrifice to live differently, to live outside the mainstream, live in a way that's not the same way the vast majority of all their neighbors or others are living. I mean, I think of Henry David Thoreau. I mean, there was that kind of a very healthy go-to-hell attitude that he had. He was going to go off and live by his pond, and, if folks wanted to come and talk to him, he would do them the honor of speaking to them usually. He wanted to be on his own, and That's always been one of the greatest parts of the American spirit. And you don't have to move out to the hills or to a lake to do that. You can, it can be a mindset in you. But I don't know if we're losing that in this country. And if we are losing that, then people are going to be less aware of the reason why they need to have to at least have the option to live as they choose. I mean, it doesn't mean that folks need to force themselves to live in a way that's going to scandalize their neighbors or whoever. But just to have that right in reserve, that's vital.
We talk about, or you talk about, how many people would suffer any inconvenience, notoriety for voicing or supporting unpopular views. Political correctness, I suppose, is the big enemy, but perhaps you'd like to talk about this.
Yeah, this is something, again, I'm sure that JPFO has seen a lot of this from people who might privately tell you that they're in favor of the Second Amendment or that they're in favor of a right to people have the right to possess firearms, but they wouldn't say that in public, and they would not want to have a small decal on their front door in favor of the Second Amendment because, well, who knows what the neighbors would say. Part of that fear and onus has been orchestrated by the government with their free speech zones that have been that the Bush administration has put up in many places where the president has gone to speak. The Secret Service will go someplace ahead of the president's arrival and pressure the local police to set up zones where demonstrators are quarantined. Sometimes these are a quarter, a half, or a mile away from where the president is going to be speaking or passing through. There's been a concerted effort to keep protesters, to quarantine them from the media. At the GOP convention in New York in September 2004, there were mass illegal arrests. The New York Police Department would simply come in and throw giant nets over large groups of people, many of whom were innocent tourists, and drag them all in and arrest them. And the NYPD also chose to ignore a judge's order to either charge people or release them within 24 or 48 hours. I've forgotten which. The government there was completely lawless, but it was very few people cared. And many people might say, well, it was just a bunch of anti-Bush demonstrators. But next time it might be a bunch of anti-Hillary Clinton demonstrators, or it might be a bunch of anti-Charles Schumer demonstrators. And at some point, it's been surprising to me that so few conservatives have voiced concern over the precedents that are being set in favor of suppression by this so-called conservative administration.